Gil. Frida. Frida, Gil. Gil, Frida.
Gil.
Garden shears.
Fixed it, didn't it? What's this?
He did.
Fixed it
It's
again.
good.
Dirty Dancing was an experience that just all the right people came together. Finding directors with a vision and really believe in what they're doing. Like Emile Ardolino and Dirty Dancing, and I love having enough trust in them to help me guide my way through and come up with a character that maybe surprises me and surprises other people. That opening sequence that Emile did was brilliant because, you know, it starts with the music and then goes into this slow motion black and white sequence that just puts you in that time period. If you really analyze history, dance was our first form of expression, our first form of worship. To me, it's one of the only pure languages because it has subtlety, it has nuance, it has power, it has sensuality. Dirty Dancing continued a role that had started for me from the time I was little. My mother is a choreographer, so I kind of came out of the womb in the arts. I always knew this is what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to act and dance and sing. Each one has taken the focus and become a huge passion. Emotion in the dance is the thing that became the most important to me. It's amazing when you're on stage, the level of communication that can happen without the luxury or hindrance of words. Dancers in many ways are the most organic actors. Our bodies and our makeup, the universe is all made up of rhythms. And when you key into those rhythms, something magical happens, something wonderful happens. And I think that's what happened in Dirty Dancing. A lot of people say this was a movie about the loss of innocence, and I believe it was a movie about the rediscovery of innocence. I think that's what Johnny and Baby are dealing with in the issues they're trying to come to terms with. In a time period where people were only just starting to begin to question, you know, our ideals. The similarities with me and Johnny Castle were pretty extreme. Growing up in Texas in a redneck mentality where I did something, you know, in terms of the arts and dance and acting and singing that people didn't understand, I had to fight my way up just to survive. And Johnny Castle, I believe, had to do the same thing on the streets of Philadelphia. You know, he danced. He didn't know why, but he knew he had to, you know, his place in the world. When Jennifer and I did our screen test together, a real chemistry and a real heat happened. Jennifer has as much natural talent as any young woman I've ever seen. And then I got to know Eleanor, who was truly the keeper of the flame for the period and helping us to find what this Dirty Dancing was. What was it born out of? Was it ballroom? Was it street? The dancing needed to have that street edge. So gradually, the team started coming together. I saw eyes in Emile Ardolino I could trust to tell me, yes, that's good, no, that's not, try this, go a different direction.
5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and...
Kenny Ortega is truly a Pied Piper. He just has such a sense of joy about him and such a sense of passion, and he was that Johnny Castle kind of guy. I was constantly frustrated in the choreography because I'm trained as a classical ballet dancer. So I'm ready to jump and turn and leap and do virtuoso stuff, but I'm like, no, what would Johnny Castle do? If he jumped off a stage, it's not gonna be in a grand jeté, it's gonna be like just a wild man, you know? When you have a low budget movie, you don't have a lot of time. So we were rehearsing and choreographing and playing and experimenting every second we weren't on camera. We'd have to have an AD waiting outside the door to tell us when to turn off the music, you know, when they were trying to shoot other stuff. Of course, that set the stage for a lot of discovery, a lot of wonderful things, ideas, dance moves, ways of putting things together. Because what the dancing needed was an edginess. It didn't need to be very formal and pretty. Like if you notice when I'm dancing with Penny in front of the public and that kind of thing, it's more formal, it's more of the time period. When Billy and Baby break through those doors, they step into a parallel universe. Because it was so believable, as an audience member, you're totally taken on the ride. And if that one moment hadn't succeeded, I'm not sure the movie would have worked. But that's really a testament to Emile Ardolino's true ability as a storyteller. He knew how to suck an audience into Baby's journey and the questions she's asking and turning into a woman, and what does that look like? What does that feel like? But the truth for me is that relationship and these two people asking questions that we all have to address, you know, in order to grow up and figure out what being mature is all about. I think it's those things that made this movie work so beautifully. And honestly, If Jennifer Grey wasn't as brilliant as she was as Baby Houseman, none of the movie would have worked, because Johnny Castle really is the foil. He's really the dream, but the entire story is told through Baby's eyes. Jennifer just captured Baby in a way that I don't think anybody else could have.
Do we need another rehearsal?
No.
Well, good. Let's do a take.
Well, I remember when I first read the script. Actually, I read a breakdown in my agent's office, and I went, wait, this is me. I have to do this. I mean, this is a perfect part for me. And it was that first and maybe only time since then that I really thought that. And I don't think that happens very often, where it feels like a perfect fit. And so then I went in. I think my first thing was a dance audition. You had to bring in your own music, so I brought in a little cassette of the Jackson 5, like "I Want You Back" or something. And I was probably wearing leg warmers because, it was the 80s. I stuck that tape in, and it was at this place on Broadway in like 41st Street. And I remember going up there and being so scared, and all these people in the hall, and putting my tape in and just kind of like freaking out, dance-wise, just like I don't even know what I did. My body just like was out of control. It was just dancing the way I danced when I was totally free. But I was in a very unfree environment, and I just was like access some kind of spirit. And I think that's when it happened. I felt it. I felt like, oh, I nailed it. I just knew that was part of what this girl's journey was about. It was about just like a natural feeling, and as opposed to a trained dancer. And even though I'd had a lot of dance training that enabled me to kind of get in touch with that or really know how to do that stuff, it was more of a feeling than dance steps. Like, I didn't have any choreography at all. I remember Billy Zane was one of my dance partners. I thought he was going to get it, actually, because he was very like Brando. He was very had this really kind of sexual Brando thing. And his dancing was pretty good, but it wasn't. And then I danced with this other guy who was more of a dancer, and he was kind of whipping me around and throwing me around, because it was really about making themselves look good, kind of like a rag doll at the end of their arm. And then there was Patrick. And when, we had done Red Dawn together, so we had known each other quite well. And I remember us dancing together, and it was just all of a sudden very easy. I was a good girl at home, in high school, and growing up. I was really, really good. And I had this whole double life as a teenager, where I'd go to Studio 54 every night with my boyfriend, and had this very kind of secretive, dark life, rebellious. And I needed to do that because I was deeply attached to my parents. So without that, I'd probably still be living with them today instead of having my own family. But I think it's part of, any breaking away, which is a lot of what the story was about, was, breaking away from your family of origin and individuating. And I think that's what I did before I did Dirty Dancing. I did it at Studio 54. It was a movie that was being made for nothing in a time when there were no movies being made for nothing. So there was really, it was maybe also going to be a little like Blue, it felt. Like a little like maybe my parents, I wouldn't want them to see this movie. I couldn't tell what the movie was. I didn't have a sense of if it was going to be really dirty and I was going to be like a pawn in this kind of weird softcore porn movie, or if it was going to be like a weird, like, I didn't know if it was, I didn't know what it was, because it wasn't, there'd been Flashdance. And I'd almost gotten Flashdance. I think I had screen tested maybe 8 or 10 times for it. It was like the one that got away. I was so messed up over it, and I was so crazy about just like, Adrian Lyne and this, like, all that just raunchy dancing in high heels. To me, that was just like my idea of heaven, But when I lost that, I think I was devastated. So this was like my next chance. And there were these, there was movies like Footloose around, there was movies with dancing, but I couldn't tell what this was. And this was not a studio movie. So it didn't feel like a regular movie shooting it either. It just felt like an experiment or something. I remember being in the studio with Miranda, who was just wonderful, wonderful person, and Kenny, who had an incredible energy. He had a way of just making everybody fall in love with him. And he was just very fun and sexy, and just the right amount of sexy and just the right amount of playful, you know what I mean? It was just like, it created a really just juicy atmosphere. It's the only way I know how to put it. And it was just doing this dancing for hours every day and learning the choreography and learning this like whole world of dancing that I'd never knew anything about, seen, experienced, done. And then we would, get together, I think in the evenings, and do the scenes. And we would go through the scenes and kind of fix things and tweak things and decide what the scene was about. We would, I think the afternoons were like, we'd go to this little bungalow and rehearse the scenes. And it was just kind of like working through the whole movie for about 2 weeks. And I think that was the greatest. I think there was a lot of pressure and fear also and anticipation because, the costume fittings, it's just all the stuff that goes into it. I remember like the swimming in the lake was very, 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 very cold, like horrific. Like, I don't think anyone could ever get me like that cold at this point in my life. It was a young thing, I think. Young and hungry. You have to be really young and hungry to get in water that cold for that long. It was not good. Mm-hmm. But I remember thinking, like, can you die if your nipples explode? Like, it just didn't feel, like, healthy to be in that water. That was hard. I remember doing, like the big dance finale. And I remember they just painted the stage and it was sticky. And when I turned on it, the paint would just like stick to my feet. So I couldn't turn. And then it got really glossy and really glassy and really like too shiny and slippery. And then they put Coke on it to try to make it tackier. And it was just like trying to find a good surface and doing it all with like all the extras sitting around, like just hundreds of people watching you about to like fall on your face.
Because we had to move so fast, and in order to explore and play, tons and tons of things were improv. Like in that sequence when, when it goes into the montage sequence, when I'm teaching Jennifer and I'm getting frustrated and I'm trying to get her to be serious, and she's laughing or giggling the moment I run my hand down her, down her arm, and that really is me getting frustrated. It's like, oh my God, would you just stop? The roles in life really worked as the roles in film, because Jennifer had an amazing amount of natural talent, so it really did put me in the position of getting her to connect with me. I think the sexiest love stories is just right between, two people and that intimacy, and we just did that. We just did it on film. That lift truly was a metaphor for life. It's completely about trust. She had to trust me. And sure enough, it took through the movie to get her to have that trust. Every time she'd go up, she'd pull into a fetal position and wasn't willing to do it. I've got control beyond belief in these wrists. Okay, your fear will be going over.
That's true.
I'm gonna take you up a little higher. What's in the movie is exactly the truth. That's a scary lift, and someone has to have trust. When you're just teetering at your hips, over someone's head, it's a very scary thing to get up there and have the courage to just do it with abandon and let go. But the lake was a safe place to do it. Good. So it was a wonderful blend of scripted and improvisation all the way through it. The soundtrack was blow away. It all came together in bits. We just started, to a time of my life, with just a rhythm track. And then gradually the instruments built and it all came together. It was one of those things, yet another one of those elements to a movie that all the right people came together, with a musical team coming on board to try to put together an incredibly memorable soundtrack. Was an honor to get to be involved with.
I mean, I went to a screening of it with my agent at the time, who was just like, no. Now, by the end of the screening, I knew that she hated it. And I just went home and I just thought, what have I done? And she made it clear that she didn't think anyone would ever see it, and that whoever did see it wouldn't blame me. That's what she said. And I was just devastated. And I was just like, I just thought, well, it's shocking enough to see yourself that big on the screen for that long a period of time, doing that many things. And that was just very, very hard. And then to have the person you're watching it with not like it at all. So I was very, very despondent about the whole thing. And I just basically went about my life and just assumed that no one would ever see it, and that I would, just go on, maybe do something else other than act, and it was just over for me. And then I remember feeling like there was all of a sudden a little bit of excitement. It was a screening, like closer to the opening, like a press screening, and there was a lot of electricity in the air, and a lot of excitement, and people all of a sudden didn't think I was awful. And I thought, maybe I'm not awful. And I thought, I'm not so awful. Actually, I'm kind of good, and it was really, it was a little bit of a different cut, but how different could it have been, I guess a couple of days before the movie opened, there's a picture of me and Patrick on the front page of the Arts and Leisure section, the Sunday New York Times. And I think the picture was maybe half a page, like the top half of the page. And I was like, so it's like that. I was like, that's a whole different scene, Maybe someone's going to see this movie, But it was like that sleeper hit that they were talking about. But what did that really mean? And, and is it possible? And it was just bizarre, because it really went from, there's no chance anyone's ever going to see this, and it's bad, and I'm bad in it too. You're America's sweetheart.
Dirty Dancing allowed me to really flush out and develop the musician in me. When I wrote She's Like the Wind, when I started writing it and then continued writing it with Stacey Weidlitz, I knew it was the right kind of song for the movie, and I just want to see if they liked it. The more I played it, it just kept coming, and then Stacey and I got together and continued fleshing it out, and so I played it for them while we were shooting, and they loved it and wanted it in the movie. Every time I sing it now, anywhere, and perform it, I have to dedicate it to Lisa, because I've been married to this woman for 30 years. It'll be 31 years, and I feel really fortunate. I feel like I kind of fell and landed on my feet. I'm really thankful for that opportunity that Dirty Dancing has served me as a human being. The biggest thing Dirty Dancing has given me in my life is gratitude. It was interesting to go back to the dance in my life at that moment, when I've been studying acting for a long time and had already done a lot of work before then. Something about Johnny Castle and turning into this guy from South Philadelphia and finding the parts of Patrick Swayze that were similar really gave me a chance to start addressing that part of myself that could rise above. So Dirty Dancing gave me a chance to go back to that and reanalyze that for myself. Sometimes a movie it encapsulates a period or a moment in all of our lives in such a way that it never dies. And I think Dirty Dancing did that.